We are in John chapter 18. Last week we dealt with the betrayal of Judas. We talked about Jesus standing before Annas, the high priest. It's often referred to as a trial before Annas. It's not much of a trial. Annas questions him. We talked about how Annas most likely already knew the answers to the questions that he was asking Jesus. Who are you? What did you teach? Why are you here? Where did you come from? By what authority? All these questions had been asked by the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes, the Sanhedrin, the chief priest. They had all gone and investigated and questioned Jesus. The answers had already been given. And I ask if you saw hypocrisy here in verses 28 and 30 of John chapter 18. Jesus was led from the house of Caiaphas to the governor's headquarters. It was early in the morning. So these trials were illegal. They were held overnight with no witnesses except those who sat in judgment. It is early in the morning when they take Jesus to the governor's headquarters. They themselves did not enter the governor's headquarters so that they would not be defiled, but could go home after having contributed, set up, put in motion the death of an innocent man and enjoy the Passover feast. And look at each other and say, my, what good boys are we. We are fulfilling God's command to remember the Passover. Is there hypocrisy there? Were they not defiled by bringing false witnesses, seeking out false witnesses against Jesus? And somehow they're blind to it? And that's a question for me. How? How do they not see? But when we talk about these things, there are three truths that I think are important here to bring out because, yes, these are men far removed.
They had to see it, Ron. They had to. They just chose to do what they wanted to do. You don't get to enforce the law by breaking the law. If that makes sense.
It does seem that they had to see it.
These are well-learned men. These are not just the average people walking around and out in the world.
But that's absolutely. They're learned men.
Yes.
They have supposedly spent their life searching the scriptures. They did not know Jesus. And John says in chapter 1, the world doesn't know him. The light comes into the world. The world doesn't recognize its own creator. But are things different today? Do we live somewhat in hypocrisy? What does the teaching teach us concerning, don't be so concerned about the speck in someone else's eye when there's this, and use whatever word you want, log, mote, you name it, this obvious thing, you're this close to it, you cannot see it. How? Why? What's going on? And this is an important teaching. The three truths that I pointed out, and I'm sure there's more, and you can help me with this, but men are often concerned about sin, and that can be a noble thing. It can be important. But Isaiah will say in chapter 5, verse 20, that there are men that will put darkness as light. They will put forth evil as good. They will exchange and put forth bitter as if it's sweet. And we see that today in many realms. The business realm, the financial realm, the political realm, the moral realm. Don't judge me See, you're not using, and because what you think is evil, I'm going to proclaim to you and your children and your neighbors, and I'm going to do it so loudly that I will create a following and put forth that evil is actually good. So the Jews do not want to be guilty of defiling themselves. And that can be a good thing, but what is this Passover that they're wanting to attend? Tell me a little something about the Passover. It's a memorial. A holy, powerful, righteous, good, caring, loving God brings them out of Egypt. The Passover is to commemorate that if you obey God, you kill the sacrificial lamb, you put the blood on the lintels and the post of your doorway, and you will be protected. You will be saved. This is what they want to go celebrate, how righteous and good God is, having delivered Jesus to Pilate to be crucified. Men are often guilty of ignoring sins while exalting other sins. Speck in my neighbor's eye, he can handle that. He doesn't need our help. And the mote in my eye, which I refuse to acknowledge. The Jews exalted washing of hands and attacked Jesus. Why don't your disciples wash their hands? The Jews, and we're talking about the Jewish leadership, is very concerned about 3 men on crosses and that interfering with their worship to a holy God, and one of them they put there, knowing he was innocent. But they don't want him on the cross. That's inconvenient. Purity, washing of hands is more important. Find that in John chapter 19. All of sins defile, and all are guilty of sin. And we tend to forget that. The third point, men are concerned about sin. Good thing. Men can often be guilty of ignoring some sins. Not so good. Men are often ignorant of the whole plan of God, is my third point. And the Jews are blind. They don't see it. And I'm with you. I ask the same question. How do they not know they are unclean? There seems to be a great comfort in dealing with people. As long as you don't know of my sin, I can stand up and be proud and lead a prayer or lead a song or preach a sermon or teach a Sunday school class. And that's the deciding factor. I know, but I don't know how involved God is in my life and that God knows. A good parent finds out their child has stolen a toy from the store or gotten a candy bar. Does that parent allow them to get away with it? A good parent, a loving parent, will not allow it to do. Will God allow you to get away with thievery or you name the sin? It doesn't matter. A loving God will not allow it. Why? Because it will destroy you. It will destroy those around you, those you care for, your church family. Sin destroys. So they are blind. I don't want to be blind. Matthew 23:23, Jesus taught us to pay attention to all aspects of God's law. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. This is found in Matthew 23:23. You tithe mint, dill, and cumin. If you're growing that in your garden, how hard is it to give out of that abundance? Okay, you tithe mint, dill, and cumming, and nobody knows that unless you call attention to it. Hey, what a good boy am I, I'm tithing this. You have neglected the weightier matters of the law. Specifically, Jesus names justice, mercy, and faithfulness. Those you ought to have done without neglecting the others. We can see tithing of mint out of my garden is a good thing. God's given the increase. I'm returning to God. I'm acknowledging God's blessings. But turn the coin over. Justice, mercy, and faithfulness is weightier. It's more important. What if I get those three right, but I refuse to give? Well, God doesn't need my money. The church has got plenty of money. They just misuse it anyway. The government, I'll withhold my taxes because the government's not doing right by that. And is that what Jesus teaches? Is that what God teaches? Why? It plants a seed in our heart, and seeds often don't stay seeds. I'll take you to my garden, and I'll show you the seeds that I didn't even plant, and the weeds are about this tall. They grow, and they grow roots, and they change who you are. Judas, it was noted that he would steal money from the bag. Money given to Jesus for the ministry, for their well-being. It probably didn't start there, but that one little thing led Judas down a path. That one little sin, if we can call it that, that's not accurate. So I think it's important to note that there are applications to our lives today, and they are important. In verses 28, chapter 18, verses 28 and 30, they led Jesus from the house of Caiaphas to the governor's headquarters. It was early in the morning. They themselves did not enter the governor's headquarters, as they would not be defiled, so that they would not be defiled, but could eat the Passover. 29, so Pilate went outside to them and asked, what accusation do you bring against this man? In verse 30, they answered him, if this man were not doing evil, we would not have delivered him to you. I think the hypocrisy, the obvious hypocrisy, continues. We're told in Luke that these men accused Jesus of many things. The priest accused him of many things in Mark 15. They accused Jesus of making himself a king. They accused Jesus of saying not to pay tribute to Caesar, which is illegal under Roman law. Did Jesus do that? I don't think he did that. You remember the teaching Jesus says is questioned about taxes? And yes, I do wish every April that Jesus says, yeah, you don't have to pay taxes to the government. That's not what Jesus taught. I so wished he would. And he says, give me a coin whose inscription is on it. Caesar's. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's. He doesn't teach that. It's false accusation. They're lying. 31 and 32. Pilate said to him, take him yourselves and judge him by your own law. Why? If it's evil, they can't go into the Gentiles' homes. It would make them unclean. They are determining what's evil and not. Pilate says, that's not for me to do. Judge him by your own law. What was the law for blasphemy, by the way? Last week we talked about Caiaphas accuses him of blasphemy. That's the accusation that Jesus said he was the Son of God. Jesus said that you will see me coming on the right hand of power in the clouds of the sky. And that was deemed blasphemy. So if that's why he's there, what's the penalty for blasphemy? Stoning. When I ask you later, why didn't they stone him? Pilate says, take and judge him by your own law. The Jews, again, Jewish leadership said to him, it is not lawful for us to put anyone to death. The sentence has already been decided. They've delivered him to Pilate with the intention, no evidence giving. Trust us. We say he's doing evil, kill him. Pilate, take him and kill him. Verse 32, it was to fulfill the word that Jesus had spoken to show by what kind of death he was going to die. These are not the words of Jesus, but Jesus has spoken many times. John 3:16, John 8:28, John 12:33 come to mind. Even in verse 9 of chapter 18, it is to fulfill the word that he's spoken of those whom you gave me. I have not lost not one, referring to John 17:17, I believe, where Jesus is praying to the Father. Jesus' words are prophetic. They continue to be prophetic. Look at Matthew chapter 20, verse 18. I've got it on your handout. Jesus' words. See, we're going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man, Jesus himself, will be delivered over to the chief priest and scribes. Accurate so far? And they will condemn him to death and deliver him to the Gentiles to be mocked and flogged and crucified, and he will be raised on the third day. Jesus' words before it happens. (33 through 36). Pilate entered his headquarters again and called Jesus and said to him, "Are you the King of the Jews?" As we read this section, it goes into the middle of chapter 19. I want you to make mental note of Pilate comes out, verse 29, to them. He goes into the palace to speak to Jesus. And how many times Pilate goes out and in, and out and in. And for me, he's on the fence. What should he do? Does he not know what to do? He speaks with them. It seems plausible. He speaks with Jesus. Well, Jesus he will go to say, I find no fault in him. So the going in and going out, for me, is a word picture that he's tossed back and to like the waves of the sea by the wind, and he's unsteady. And he doesn't know. I know people like that. And don't tell anybody, but I've been in that as I mature. Verse 34, Jesus answered. Pilate asked, "Are you King of the Jews?" Jesus answers, "Do you say this of your own accord, or did others say it to you about me?" Pilate answers, "Am I a Jew? Your own nation and the chief priest have delivered you over to me. What is it you have done?" Verse 36, Jesus answers, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would have been fighting that I might not be delivered over to the Jews. My kingdom is not of this world." So Pilate asked, "Are you a king?" Jesus' response to that is, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. My kingdom is not of this world. Jesus offers proof. Did Jesus garner soldiers, fighters? He drew to him common men. And in fact, he will tell Peter, "Put your sword away." Peter's willing to defend. Put your sword back in the sheath. Put it away. So it's not what Jesus is doing. What did he do? And Pilate should know this, by the way. He's done it for years. Did he heal the sick, the lepers, the blind, lame from birth, walk on water, feed 5,000? That's a long list. It goes on. This is what Jesus did. Is that rebellious? He taught reconciliation to God. These are the words, I've heard them from the Father, and the command is for me to give them to you. God loves you, cares for you, seeks your obedience. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Every aspect of your life. This is what Jesus did. So Pilate should know these things because he doesn't do them in secret. He does them and they're talked about. At every feast, every Passover, every major feast in Jerusalem, the question is there, is Jesus going to come? They're seeking to arrest him, to kill him, but you think he's going to come. And he does. And he teaches openly. So in verse 37 and 38, Pilate says to him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answers, "You say that I am a king. For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world." Was Jesus' purpose, reason for coming into the world, so that he might be a king? His answer doesn't stop there. For this purpose I was born, for this purpose I've come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice. So Pilate asked the question, what is truth? He doesn't wait for the answer. But Jesus has answered that question for us, and we need to make note of it. John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except by me. If that statement's not true, he's not the way, the truth, and the life. In chapter 17, verse 17, sanctify them in truth. He's praying to God, his Father, for the disciples. Set them apart. Keep them in your truth. Sanctify them in your truth. Your word is truth. Jesus is very clear about that. In your word is eternal life. And John chapter 3, verse 21, and this helps me get my arms around what is truth, what is my part in truth, because Jesus asked God to set them apart, keep them safe, protect them. He will say elsewhere, I protected them while I was with them. And he asked the Father to protect them. But in John chapter 3, verse 21, and I often quote 14, where John tells Nicodemus he'll be raised up, he'll be lifted up on a cross. Even that early in his ministry, he knew. 3:16, for God so loved the world. But when we get to verse 21, Jesus' words will say, but whoever does what is true comes to the light, so that it may be clearly seen that his works have been carried out in God. Focus on that word does. Circle that word. Whoever does. Truth, God's word, right? Truth, Jesus, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. But truth can be practiced by us every day. We understand right and wrong. And if we mess that up, we misunderstand the teaching, we have reconciliation through Jesus. I am the way, the truth, the life. So truth, Pilate asks the question, doesn't wait for the answer. Truth is standing before him. Jesus has taught the truth. Jesus is capable of answering the truth, but Pilate is capable of doing right, choosing right and wrong. And so are we. So we have a part in this as well. So our subject, the question has revolved around Jesus' kingdom. So on page 3 of your handout, let's consider the kingdom of Jesus just a moment. When Pilate orders Jesus to be crucified, he also orders a sign to be made and placed above Jesus' head on the cross. Do you remember what the sign said? This is Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews.
How many languages?
Well, it is. And so you're saying it's accurate?
Yeah.
Okay, I agree. Just testing.
I said, how many languages did he put it in?
3 languages. He wanted it communicated. Is it accurate? Yes. But it's so very limited. What is Jesus king of?
The world.
He created it all. It is all. It is everything. He is king over everything. This kingdom is not given to him by men. This kingdom is given to him by God. Ephesians 1, verses 20 and the few verses following. As you take this lesson, I really hope you do and review it over the coming days. Go to Ephesians 1, 20 through 23, because it will tell us that Jesus was given this kingdom after the resurrection. So the kingdom of Jesus is not of this world. If it were, his servants would be fighting. Peter was told to put down his sword, put away his sword. If it were of this world, it would be extremely important that Jesus is not handed over to his enemies and put to death. But in the garden, Jesus gets up, knowing all that's going to happen to him, and walks toward the mob. He walks toward Judas. He walks toward the chief priest, the scribes that were there, the temple guard, and again, knowing all that was going to happen to him. And there were Roman soldiers there as well. So the truth is, for Jesus to be pleasing to God, for this plan of reconciliation, for it to take place, Jesus must be handed over. And he does so willingly. Matthew 28:18, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. This is after the resurrection. This is why it happened. The kingdom of Jesus is not of this realm. It's not from here. It's not a man established a kingdom. Jesus' rule is not in the law. It's in your heart. You don't have to memorize the Bible to know right from wrong. You don't have to memorize the Bible to know the cashier gave me too much money. What's the right thing to do? You already know. And it's one simple verse, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You know that if you're the cashier that gives the wrong amount of money, the boss, the owner of the business is probably going to take that money back from your paycheck. And he should. You're the one that made a mistake, gave it away. Jesus' rule is in men's hearts and in their minds. There are people still waiting for a Messiah to come. The kingdom has already come. It already exists. Colossians 1:13 and 14. He has delivered us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of His beloved Son, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sin. All that is in the past tense. What's missing? Your willingness to obey. That you are in control of. You know what, how, when, and where. If you don't know, there are people surrounding you that can help with that. It is written. So is there a conclusion concerning Pilate and his actions? My conclusion is that Pilate never appreciated, and that's not a thank you type of appreciation. It is understanding who Jesus is and was, what He represented, what He desired, and what it was that Jesus truly was king over. So Pilate will ask the question, what is truth? He'll make the statement, I find no flaw in Him, no guilt in Him. And so Pilate still has to make the decision. Do I save an innocent man? These are pursuing Him. They have bound Him. They brought Him to me for one purpose, killing. Do I save an innocent man? Or do I save my position of respect and where I feel comfortable and safe and I have power and authority? And Pilate chooses to crucify Christ. Here's the hard part. If we fail to appreciate who Jesus is, here's the hard question. Do we crucify Jesus? An innocent man. Say, your life is worth nothing and I care nothing. Hebrews 6:6 says we do. It's like, how can I do that? You know how. So let's go to the end of the chapter. Verses 39 and 40. Pilate, wanting to do both, I think. We're in the realm of I think. Pilate wants to set Him free. I find no guilt in Him. I've talked to Him. He's not guilty. He wants to satisfy both, the mob outside and protect his power and authority and comfort, all the benefits that go with that job. He says, you have a custom that I should release one man to you at the Passover. Again, we are at the Passover, and it is the Pharisees, the chief priest, who will sacrifice the lamb to take away the sins of the world, this time the true Lamb of God. Do you want me to release you the King of the Jews? And they cried out again, not this man, but Barabbas. And Barabbas was a robber. The chief priests and the elders are the ones we find in Matthew chapter 27 that persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas. Those who should know, who claim to know. They asked for Barabbas and they asked to destroy Jesus. So I told you I'd ask you later, why didn't they just take Jesus and stone Him? Remember the woman caught in adultery just outside of the temple? They bring her to Jesus. They've concocted this situation, and they are more than willing to stone her. Jesus does ask them to answer the question, whoever's guilty of no sin, cast the first stone. And they walk away. How did Jesus walk through the crowd at the top of the hill when their intent was they drug him out there to throw him off the hill and kill him, and yet no harm comes to him? It was not yet his time, is a repeated phrase. No physical harm came to Jesus until this point. But why wouldn't they stone him? The trial is in the middle of the night. Go ahead. No, I thought I heard you.
Wasn't in the plan.
It wasn't part of the plan. But this position of authority is so important. Who did the people think Jesus was? The Jesus the people knew, they're amazed at his teaching. The Jesus the people knew, he healed my friend the leper, the lame man, the blind one. He fed 5,000. He raised Lazarus. I went and met Lazarus. He was just outside the city of Jerusalem. I saw the tomb where he lay. He's not there. Look at John 12, 13 and 14. It's on your sheet. So they took branches of palm trees and went out to meet him, crying out, Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, even King of Israel. And Jesus found a young donkey and sat on it, just as it is written, Fear not, daughter of Zion, behold, your king is coming, sitting on a colt. The people thought him to be king, believed he was king. They would ask, when the Messiah comes, will he do anything greater than what this man is doing? So who's going to pick up stones against him? It has to be the religious leaders. And when they see the resurrected Christ, they will know the religious leaders are so wrong. They're the only ones wanting to stone him. Hence the trial in the middle of the night. Hence before the people arise and realize what's going on, that Jesus has been bound and beaten and arrested, they're going to carry him to Pilate. And Pilate will usher him away and oh my goodness, we had nothing to do with it. That's not true. The people would have rebelled. The people wouldn't put up with what the religious leaders, the Sanhedrin, the leaders of are trying to do. Let's go worship together.